Has anybody ever handed you a map and then just walked away? Didn't tell you where you were standing? Didn't show you which direction was north? Just handed you the map, wished you luck, and left. That's what most courses do. And if you've ever paid good money for something that felt exactly like that, I want to talk to you today. I've been a pastor for a long time, and one thing I know about people, really know it, down in my bones, is that information alone almost never changes a life. I've watched people sit in a pew and hear the same truth week after week and nothing moves. Not because the truth isn't real, but because hearing something and walking through something are two very different things. What actually changes people is when somebody comes alongside them, not above them, not ahead of them, shouting back instructions, alongside them, walking the same road at the same pace and saying, I see where you are. Here's the next step. I'm not going anywhere. I didn't always apply that understanding to my own life when it came to business. For about 40 years, I kept believing if I could just find the right information, the right system, the right program, I could figure out the rest on my own. So I joined things, 8, maybe 10 of them over the years. And every time I'd get the material, I'd study it, I'd try to work it. And somewhere in there, I'd hit a wall and have nobody to call. Nobody who actually knew my situation. Nobody who was going to stay. That's a lonely feeling, especially when you've already spent money you didn't have to spare. Here's what I've come to understand. There's a difference between selling somebody something and actually caring whether they make it. I've been on the receiving end of both, and you can feel the difference immediately. When somebody sells you something, the relationship ends at the transaction. You get the login, you get the video, and they move on to the next person. If you struggle, and you will struggle, everybody does, you're on your own. Maybe there's a Facebook group somewhere with strangers in it. Maybe there's an email address that goes to somebody you've never met. But the person who looked you in the eye and told you this would work, they're gone. I had that happen more times than I want to count. And each time it happened, I didn't just lose money, I lost a little bit of my belief that things could be different. Now I want to tell you about something I've seen that works the other way. I heard about a woman, her name was Marisol, who had spent $20,000 with a well-known program. Big name, promises that sounded real, and when she needed help the most, when she was stuck and confused and reaching out, she got silence, nothing. She was left sitting there with debt and no results and no one to call. She was ready to quit entirely, said this was her last try. Believe me, I've said that before. And what changed for her wasn't finding better information. It was finding somebody who actually stayed. Somebody who gave her a plan and then walked her through it, step by step, and didn't disappear when things got hard. 30 days later, she had made $5,000, her first real results after years of trying. Now, I'm not telling you that to impress you with a number. I'm telling you because I recognize that story. I lived a version of it for 4 decades. The information was never the thing I was missing. What I was missing was somebody in my corner who gave a genuine rip about whether I made it. When I started this journey in September of last year, 77 years old, no technology background, didn't know what half the words meant, I was scared, honestly. I'd been burned enough times to know that excitement at the beginning doesn't mean much. What matters is what happens when you get stuck. And I got stuck plenty of times. But this time there was somebody there when I did. Not a stranger in a chat box, not a recorded video that kind of answered my question. Somebody who looked at where I actually was and said, here's what you do next. That's not a course, that's a coach. And for somebody like me, especially at my age, trying something I never tried before, that difference is everything. I think about it like this. When I was in construction, a young man learning to pour concrete didn't just read a manual and go figure it out. Somebody showed him, stood next to him, let him make small mistakes where they didn't cost too much, and corrected him before the bad habits set in. That's how real skill gets built, not from a library, from somebody who's done it, standing close enough to catch you when you slip. If you've been buying things and feeling more and more alone inside the process, it's not because you're not capable. It might just be that nobody has actually stayed with you long enough for the thing to work. I argued with God for 3 years about becoming a pastor. 3 years of resistance, 3 years of telling him that I wasn't the right man for it. And looking back, I think part of what I was really afraid of was a responsibility, not of preaching, of staying, of being the person in somebody's life who doesn't leave when it gets complicated. That's what God kept calling me to, not to perform, to stay. I think that's what most of us are really looking for in faith and in everything else. Not somebody with all the answers, somebody who won't walk away when we're still figuring it out. God doesn't waste the seasons where we learn what that feels like. He uses them to show us exactly what to look for. If you've been trying to do this alone and wondering why nothing sticks, I just encourage you to consider whether the missing piece is a person, not a program. What finally made sense to me was something that came with somebody in it, not just counterfeit, not just content, actual guidance from someone who stays. I put a link in the description if you want to take a look. It'll just take you just a few minutes. No pressure at all. Just look when you're ready. Thank you for spending some time with me today, and I'll see you this coming Friday.